Hey everyone, I am back. I am back from my very hectic uni semester. Thank you for everyone for being really patient with me. It's been tough. It's been tough. I did 3 units, so full time is 4 units, but doing an IT degree is it's quite strenuous. And three very difficult units is what I was doing. So there was interactive web design, mobile design applications, and network security. So they were very challenging. So I managed to keep up with most of my live streams, but yeah, I had to kind of put a pause on the episodes. So now that the uni semester is over, I can get back to making some more episodes, and that's exactly what it is I'm going to do. Starting it off with an educational series on web design. Um, I've already done some HTML in the past, but this unit made me dive a little bit deeper, connecting it to a database, etc., etc. So we're going to do something similar, except I'm going to link it to the suspicious link videos that I've done by designing a web page that's going to be similar to a scam site. This whole project, hopefully, we can get away with once it's completed, actually getting it live and facing it to the internet so that all of you would be able to access it. We'd be able to share that link around so that we can educate people to being able to spot a scam. We're going to start with the very basics in this one, and that is going to be 2 programs that you're going to need to download in order to be able to follow these lessons. The first one probably being necessary in the early lessons, and that's going to be Notepad++. This is just going to allow you to be able to write the code along with me and actually test it. You don't necessarily need to use the web server, which is XAMPP. I'll put links in the comments below to the websites where I got these, so you can download and use them. But for now, it's mainly just going to be Notepad++. So in this very first lesson, it's going to be a little bit of a talk about HTML in particular, because that's going to be the information or the meat of the web page. With a web page, you've got 3 basics that are going to be used, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML being hypertext markup language is like I said before, the information that's going to be displayed on the web page. CSS, the cascading style sheets, is for the aesthetics, so how it's going to look. And then JavaScript is going to control all of its functionality, whether you click on something, you can have it being altered or something like that. Or for forms, you can have it wash and validate input. So I've made up a little bit of a test HTML web page just now. This is incredibly simple, and just to break this down, at the very top here we have the document declaration. So it's with the brackets, exclamation mark, doc type HTML. It's probably quite self-explanatory there, but it's basically saying that this document is a HTML file. From there, everything that is HTML related will go inside of these tags. HTML uses tags for just about everything, and it has an open and a close tag. So the HTML goes at the very top and the very bottom. Within that, there are 2 portions, being the head, which here we have it being empty, and the body, which is where you will store all of your information, where you'll write all of your information. The head typically will be used for some of the alterations to the HTML information, but generally you'll use CSS for that. You can put CSS here, or you can have CSS stored in a separate file that gets called. We'll go through as many of them as we can throughout the lessons, so you can get a bit of a variety and mixed bag to designing your web page however you like. Very, very beginning, comments. They're very important. Very important with everything you do. You write functions, scripts, paragraphs, different headlines, etc., etc. Comments are extremely important. And comments are as simple as the angle bracket, exclamation mark, 2 dashes, write your comment, then close it out with 2 dashes and an arrow bracket. If we remove this end part, you can see that it comments out everything. So it's important to make sure that you're closing your tags. Otherwise, it won't know which part is going to be comment and which isn't. Notepad++, you can see here, will do all that once you have saved it as a HTML file. And that's as simple as just save as. Choose the location for it and make sure that it's save type as hypertext markup language file. I've already done that, so it's just stored on the desktop. For future purposes, we will be storing it in the XAMP htdocs file, but I'll explain that when we get to it, because we want the web server to display the web page as opposed to just our browser. Again, I'll explain that in further detail when we get through to those sorts of lessons. But within the body tag, we usually have a few different things that we use, and that's going to be things like headlines. So you can see here, H1, that's headline 1. And if you're familiar with Microsoft Word, you have your headlines that you can choose from being headline main. So that's the biggest one. It's usually in very large font. It's bold. It's what would clearly be the primary headline. So that's going to be default, the largest one. And then from there, you can have headline 2, headline 3. And then again, you could come back down, H1, hello, close it out. And then you can have other subheadings underneath it. So you can have multiple main headlines with subheadlines underneath it. The structure of that comes down to what type of document it is that you're presenting to people. Underneath the headlines, not necessarily needing to be underneath headlines, you have the P tag, which is for paragraph. And this is just going to be where you'll put sentences, paragraphs, and other small amounts of information. Again, making sure that you do close out all of these tags, very, very important. So this is the basic structure to a HTML file. And to see it in action, Control save. I have got it saved on the desktop. Test. And there it is. And this is HTML in its raw form. This is just how your web browser will interpret it. So you can see this was H1. This is a web page. And we could probably have a look at your page source. And there it is. There's our source code. You can see that it will ignore all the tags. Well, ignore. It will interpret those tags and know what to do with the information that's nested within it. But here we have our gibberish for our paragraph, headline 2, headline 3, and then back to headline 1. You can see the size difference. So by default, it's going to alter the size differences depending on how you tag it. What I would recommend is having a bit of a play around with this, because it is just Notepad++ you need and a web browser. That's all you need to be able to do this sort of stuff. Incredibly simple, but the absolute bare basics to what it is that we're going to be moving on to. Because if we start to progress down, script, oh, bit difficult with the microphone directly underneath my hands. A script tag is where you're going to be storing all your JavaScript. Again, the reason why it's in a script tag is so that the browser knows that it is a script, where it begins and where it finishes. And then we would just go function, script function. And this is, I guess, the basic layout to JavaScript, but we're not going to be covering JavaScript this early because it's going to be a little bit more complex. It's another language as well. So you've got HTML being a markup language. You've got CSS being like an aesthetics language. You've got JavaScript, which is a functionality language. PHP, which is going to be an interpretive language between the web server and the database. And then you've got MySQL, which is going to be a database language. So altogether, these lessons are going to incorporate about 5 languages that we're going to be using. And yeah, once we cover all the basics to HTML, because there are lots. So for web forms, again, this is going to be a separate episode that I'll cover HTML forms, because each thing does dive quite deep, and with the different functionality and alterations and changes you can make to each of them. So TR, we'll go down one more. Try to always leave a gap. TR, and then TD. You'll probably notice that I am tabbing out indentation. I find that just make it easier to read. So then I would go that exclamation mark HTML form. So again, comments, you'll probably want to make them quite in depth, but for this, it's not necessary because we're not actually covering it. And we're going to go a label, type, text, and we're going to go enter your name. Again, you can see that I'm closing the tags. Lovely. Label, and then input type is going to be text again, because that's what we're going to be inputting for a form. Again, I'm only showing this for I guess educational purposes on where we're going to actually be going with it, and show just how easy it actually is. Some tags don't necessarily need to have the full closing tag, like for inputs, because it is just an input. There's no meat in the middle as such. You can close it out like that, or you can close it out properly. Either one will suffice. BR is for a break, and then we'll put another label in. Type equals text. Not necessary to put that in, but I like doing it just for the fun of it. Enter your date of birth. And then we'll do another input. Actually, we'll do an input. Input type text. We'll put it as text for now, but I'll put it as the close of that sort of tag so you can see how it works. TRDD. So just quickly, just so if you can wrap your head around it before we actually cover it in a lesson. So the form starts here, ends here. Table row, table data. So table row starts here, and table row ends there. Table data starts there, table data ends there. So this is where you can start to break things up. So you can have the first part being your name, your date of birth. Then you could go down to where your address is, your state, zip code, postcode, whatever. And then another table row. So there'd be 3 table rows where you could have payment information. We save that. We go back to our test. And there's our boxes that we can enter stuff in. And then probably finish it all up with input type submit, and we'll just close it like that. And then we come back in here, submit, boop, 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 boop. So now we have a submit button, and you could just change where that position is just by putting a BR in, just a break, so that will force it down into the next line. Done. So try to wrap your head around the basics of just this bit being the HTML. If we were to take that and indent increase. So the reason why I'm putting indentation in here is just so that you can see what aligns with what. So you can see the body aligns with the body here, the HTML aligns with the HTML here. So the entire HTML document is stored within a single tag. Then you've got everything that will be in the head up here, everything in the body in here. So download Notepad++, give it a go. I'll put this code in the comments below, and I'll also put the websites of the Notepad++ website and the XAMPP website. I'll put links to that in the comments below, and just have a bit of a play around and see what you can alter and play with. You can copy entire websites and put the code into Notepad++, save it as a HTML file, and you can access that separately. That I wouldn't recommend if you're going to do it in a professional sense. So obviously stealing someone else's web page is not right. Plagiarism or theft, or blah, 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 blah. But it's good for testing purposes. So you could have the backend functionality, grab that website, test it in a private lab sort of sense. So you can get a bit of a deeper dive without having to write all the code yourself. Another useful tip would be visiting W3 Schools. W3 Schools has been around for a very long time, very helpful, and you can see what it will cover learning. You can learn just about anything. So you can see there's a lot of languages here that you can cover, but the ones that we are primarily going to be doing is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, and MySQL. That's obvious to see. Doesn't look like it. MySQL, there it is. It was right in front of my face. So, yes. We're going to be covering all 5 of those languages throughout this series, but once we have a good firm grasp of HTML, we'll probably be able to do it possibly as a live stream. Once we've gotten the lessons out of the way, probably be able to do a live stream where we actually code up a website, and we can bounce off each other and get something that looks quite nice. So, yeah. Practice with this and get familiar with it. Get familiar with opening tags, closing tags, and drop me a comment if you have any issues, any queries, you want to know something a little bit deeper about any of this. But it is quite simple. It is incredibly simple, but effective. It's something that we use quite commonly, especially anybody searching the internet, looking up things, going online shopping, etc. All of this is vital to especially e-commerce. It's vital that all 5 of these languages are being used so that the website can function, it can speak to the database, it can retrieve things, you can make your purchases, it can do it securely. There's a lot of code involved if you just looked into it. So that's going to do it for this lesson, very first lesson. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy it, and I shall speak to you in the very next one. All right. Peace.